On January 9, 1950, Evita fainted in public and underwent surgery 3 days later. Although it was reported that she had undergone an appendectomy, she was diagnosed with advanced cervical cancer. Fainting continued through 1951, including the evening after Cabildo Abierto, with extreme weakness and severe vaginal bleeding. By 1951, it had become evident that her health was rapidly deteriorating. Although her diagnosis was withheld from her by Juan, she knew she was not well, and a bid for the vice presidency was not practical. Only a few months after the renunciation, Evita underwent a secret radical hysterectomy in an attempt to eradicate her advanced cervical cancer. In 2011, a Yale neurosurgeon studied Evita's skull X-rays and photographic evidence and said that Peron may have been given a prefrontal lobotomy in the last months of her life. To relieve the pain, agitation and anxiety she suffered in the final months of her illness. Although Evita had undergone a hysterectomy performed by the American surgeon George T. Pack, the cancer had metastasized and returned rapidly. She was the first Argentine to undergo chemotherapy, a novel treatment at that time. Despite all available treatment, she became emaciated, weighing only 36 kilograms, 79 lb, by June 1952. Evita died at the age of 33, on July 26, 1952. Radio broadcasts throughout the country were interrupted with the announcement that the press secretary's office of the presidency of the nation fulfills its very sad duty to inform the people of the republic that at 20:25 hours Mrs. Eva Peron, spiritual leader of the nation, died. Ordinary activities ceased, movies stopped playing, restaurants were closed and patrons were shown to the door. Immediately after Eva Perón's death, the government suspended all official activities for 2 days and ordered all flags flown at half-staff for 10 days. It soon became apparent, however, that these measures fell short of reflecting popular grief. The crowd outside of the presidential residence, where Evita died, grew dense, congesting the streets for 10 blocks in each direction. On the morning after her death, while Evita's body was being moved to the Ministry of Labor building, 8 people were crushed to death in the throngs. In the following 24 hours, over 2,000 people were treated in city hospitals for injuries sustained in the rush to be near Evita as her body was being transported. For the Argentine team during the 1952 Summer Olympics in Helsinki due to Eva Perón's death during those games. On August 9, Saturday, the body was transferred to the Congress building for an additional day of public viewing, and a memorial service attended by the entire Argentine legislative body. The next day, after a final mass, the coffin was laid on a gun carriage pulled by CGT officials. It was followed by Peron, his cabinet, Eva's family and friends, the delegates and representatives of the Partido Peronista Femenino, then workers, nurses and students of the Eva Peron Foundation. Flowers were thrown from balconies and windows. There were different interpretations of the popular mourning of Eva Perón's death. Some reporters viewed the mourning as authentic, others saw a public succumbing to another of the passion plays of the Peronist regime. Time magazine reported that the Peronist government enforced the observance of a daily period of 5 minutes of mourning following a daily radio announcement. During Evita's time, children born to unmarried parents did not have the same legal rights as those born to married parents. Biographer Julie M. Taylor, professor of anthropology at Rice University, has said that Evita was well aware of the pain of being born illegitimate. Taylor speculates that Evita's awareness of this may have influenced her decision to have the law changed so that illegitimate children would henceforth be referred to as natural children. Upon her death, the Argentine public was told that Evita was only 30. The discrepancy was meant to dovetail with Evita's earlier tampering with her birth certificate. After becoming the First Lady in 1946, Evita had her birth records altered to read that she had been born to married parents, and placed her birth date 3 years forward, making herself younger. Shortly after Evita's death, Dr. Pedro Ayro was approached to embalm the body. Fraser and Navarro write that it is doubtful that Evita ever expressed a wish to be embalmed, and suggest that it was most likely Juan Perón's decision. Dr. Ayro was a professor of anatomy who had studied in Vienna and maintained an academic career in Madrid. His work was occasionally referred to as the art of death. His highly advanced embalming technique consisted of replacing the corpse's blood with glycerin, which preserved all organs including the brain and created a lifelike appearance, giving the body the appearance of artistically rendered sleep. Dr. Ayro was known in Buenos Aires society for his work. Among the people he had embalmed was Spanish composer Manuel de Falla. Dr. Ayro claims that his embalming of Evita's corpse began on the night of her death and that by the next morning, the body of Eva Perón was completely and infinitely incorruptible and suitable for display to the public. In the book Peron and the Enigmas of Argentina, biographer Robert D. Sweller claims that the English-speaking nations of North America and Europe largely misunderstood Argentina's response to the death of Perón as well as the ornate funeral she was granted. Sweller attributes this misunderstanding to the unique cultural makeup of the Peróns and Argentina, saying that the Peróns were of the Hispanic tradition and that their opposition was largely of British ancestry. Shortly after Evita's death, plans were made to construct a memorial in her honor. The monument, which was to be a statue of a man representing the Descamisados, was projected to be larger than the Statue of Liberty. Evita's body was to be stored in the base of the monument and, in the tradition of Lenin's corpse, to be displayed for the public. While the monument was being constructed, Evita's embalmed body was displayed in her former office at the CGT building for almost 2 years. Before the monument to Evita was completed, Juan Perón was overthrown in a military coup, the Revolución Libertadora, in 1955. Perón hastily fled the country and was unable to make arrangements to secure Evita's body. Following his flight, a military dictatorship took power. The new authorities removed Evita's body from display, and its whereabouts were a mystery for 16 years. From 1955 until 1971, the military dictatorship of Argentina issued a ban on Peronism. It became illegal not only to possess pictures of Juan and Eva Perón in one's home, but to speak their names. In 1971, the military revealed that Evita's body was buried in a crypt in Milan, Italy, under the name Maria Maggi. It appeared that her body had been damaged during its transport and storage, such as compressions to her face and disfigurement of one of her feet due to the body having been left in an upright position. In 1995, Tomás Eloy Martínez published Santa Evita, a fictionalized work propounding many news stories about the escapades of the corpse. Allegations that her body was the object of inappropriate attentions are derived from his description of an emotional necrophilia by embalmers, Coronel Koenig and his assistant Aaron Sibia. Many primary and secondary references to his novel have inaccurately stated that her body had been defiled in some way, resulting in the widespread belief in this myth. Also included are allegations that many wax copies had been made, that the corpse had been damaged with a hammer, and that one of the wax copies was the object of an officer's sexual attentions. In 1971, Evita's body was exhumed and flown to Spain, where Juan Peron maintained the corpse in his home. Juan and his third wife, Isabel, decided to keep the corpse in their dining room on a platform near the table. In 1973, Juan Peron came out of exile and returned to Argentina, where he became president for the third time. Peron died in office in 1974. His third wife, Isabel Peron, whom he had married on November 15, 1961, and who had been elected vice president, succeeded him. She became the first female president in the Western Hemisphere. Isabel had Evita's body returned to Argentina and, briefly, displayed beside Juan Perón's. Evita's body was later buried in the Duarte family tomb in La Recoleta Cemetery, Buenos Aires. The Argentine government took elaborate measures to make Evita's tomb secure. The tomb's marble floor has a trapdoor that leads to a compartment containing 2 coffins. Under that compartment is a second trapdoor and a second compartment. That is where Evita's coffin rests. Biographers Marisa Navarro and Nicholas Fraser write that the claim is often made that Evita's tomb is so secure that it could withstand a nuclear attack. It reflects a fear, they write, a fear that the body will disappear from the tomb and that the woman, or rather the myth of the woman, will reappear.